Hello everybody and welcome back. Yeah, I've been a couple of weeks without producing a video. Obviously those who subscribe to my channel would have seen that I've been on holiday. So we had a small break in proceedings here, and also I was waiting for post, because if you remember, I'm on the wrong side of the world for this sort of hobby most of the time, and when I need something it takes a while to arrive. So whilst on holiday my orders arrived, and I'll take you through what we've got for this layout. The first lot of orders is from Scale Model Scenery. I got some catch pits, the older style bar type, have not the blue plastic grid on that you get nowadays, but got some of those because the track needs drainage, so they will come in useful. What we also have is some harbour quayside railings. These are again going to go along here near where the little quay and other bits and pieces is, and these are very fine, so I'm not going to put them on quite yet because they're going to get snapped off. I can tell they probably won't last long on the layout. However, we'll put some up there, bit of health and safety. I have some 5-bar gates, and these I'm going to use a couple of those to put the entrance into the yard up here once I've bedded in the platform and the station building and everything else. Then I can start adding the fencing, and the fencing at the top end of the yard will be this, some wrought iron railings, so they will go in quite nicely. I might actually just paint them up as concrete because the Southern did have some like concrete railings that they prefabricated. Not quite sure yet because they're very fine, so you wouldn't be able to tell really, I don't think. So that's from like I say, Scale Model Scenery. And I also made an order from Osborne's. What did I get from Osborne's? Well, a little pile of stuff here. The first thing I got is a Bedford TK tipper lorry. It actually looks very nice. A little 3D printed thing. It doesn't roll anywhere, but it doesn't need to. And also a Dennis fire engine. All built, all made up, ready to go, and they can sit on the bridge over there. So there are a couple of nice little items. What I have here is some Pico containers. There's meant to be 3 in a packet, but for some reason there was only 2, so Osborne's currently are trying to sort that out for me. But yeah, a couple of 40-foot containers, not the high cube ones, so they're a bit lower than the others. But the only odd thing is they've made them flat-sided. So you can just see there, look, they're completely flat-sided, no corrugations. So they're more like refrigerated containers really. But we'll have a closer look at these later on and compare the 3 types of containers that I've now purchased. And I also have some station name boards, Southern Railway style, because sort of with the Darms Southern sort of thing, with a London South Western signal box. These go quite nicely. Does say Warmington Riverside, made out of MDF and quite fine. One of them I'm thinking of trimming down and sticking the name board on the signal box, and because it's only a short platform, just use one of these on the station where you run in. And also a box of people. I have 60 I think in there. Yep, 60 figures, 60 people, already painted from Knock. One of these is going to be lucky enough to be entombed in the signal box forever. But yeah, so he'll be cosy and warm, but he'll have somewhere to live. There's quite a few seated people in there as well, so some of those I can sprinkle into some coaching stock if necessary. If I have something that's sort of where you can see inside that there aren't people, like the Hellion bubble car when it comes out, because that should have clear windows. So some of those people could find themselves travelling backwards and forwards on a bubble car for eternity. So that is the stuff that's come in the post. Let's have a closer look at the layout. So these little catch pits, let's work out first where I'm going to install them. I'm going to have one opposite the signal box. I'm going to stick one in the middle here probably. It's a sensible location for a catch pit. I'm also going to have one over here and possibly one up here. In those two locations there. And I'll also have one up the dead end between the head shunt and the platform. They are really fine. Really fine. If I put that through. Even then you can't really see much through them, but really fine mesh. And the catch pit concrete sections. So the first thing I'm going to do on the layout is build up the ground to bring them up off the baseboard, because obviously I've got the cork layer under the track and the foam layer as well, so I need to bring everything up. So where I'm going to put these in, I'm going to put a little square of cork. Wide, so I'll fit in there. We'll have a drain in there. So drain there, drain there, drain there, two down there, one down there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 drains. So now that we got the locations for all the drains set, we'll now come out with my scalpel and I'll just cut out with the scalpel. I really should put my eyes on. That's better. So just tiny little bit there, bit there. And that pops out. I'll get some super glue. And that's one. And I'll just go around and do the other 6. What I'm going to do, because the rectangles here, the frames are made out of cardboard, I'm just going to put some varnish on them. I'm just going to use this Tamiya acrylic just to seal the card and protect it a bit for when I do the ballasting, because it's all going to get wet and I don't want them falling apart really. So just a simple job, bit of varnish on the brush and just a liberal coat. So while waiting for the glue to dry, I'm going to put a little splodge of super glue on this bit of card. I'm going to get 2 people living in this signal box. First off, this chap here, he's going to little spot of super glue on his feet, and we'll just, once put the eyes on again, just going to stand him out there, and the other chap, again super glue on his feet, and he's going to be looking in out the window towards the station. So still need a bit of furniture in there for all of them, but we have life. There's the second one peeping out the window. So the next part, now that the varnish is dried, is to give them a coat of, I'm using Tamiya light brown, XF93, and I'm just going to splash it all over. Doesn't have to be pretty because it is just a base coat. Just for protection again against the water in the glue mix that we're going to use later. So for this next bit I've got a really runny raw umber, I think it is, wash. It's a dark muddy brown colour, and that is just what we need for this. And I'm now going to liberally splash a bit all over the catch pits now. But all I'm going to do on these now is just give them a wash, make them dirty just liberally, and just leave them to dry just like that. Not rocket science, and they'll just tone down a little bit as they dry, and then I can put the lids on. And this is one of the reasons for varnishing and painting, is that it protects the card from the water. Nothing technical, it'll just drain away, soak, dry up. It just leaves it as just a dirty colour. Righty ho, so I'll put a load more cork down just to bring the ground level up, so I'm going to use less of this. Now this is my ground cover, and all that is from outside sand. This is what our gardens are made of here, and basically it's been pouring down with rain for the last few days, so it's nice and clean. Just scraped it up off the ground outside. I shall let this dry out, and then I'll just put it through a sieve to take out any large lumps, but that's for the next job. I've finished this platform edging, glued that down, so we're getting close to adding the ground cover and the ballast. So what I'm actually going to do now is put the top covers on the catch pits, and we're just going to nip these out. Now this piece is MDF, so in theory that should be free. There we go. There is a top and a bottom. The top has got a little bit more detail to it. And all I'm going to do is anywhere I do, is make a blob of super glue. If I can get any more out of this bottle, I think I'm nearly done. Yeah, I'm going to say that one is now done. I have some Gorilla super glue. Plenty in here. So like I say, I'm just going to put a blob Oh come on, surely this hasn't gone off as well. Oh, it's a gel, so there's a little bit more of a squeeze. There we go. Big blob of gel. I'm going to grab a cocktail stick. I'll get some glue on there. Some glue on there. And we'll drop that on the top there. So we'll just repeat that again. Right, let's try again, shall we? A little smear of super glue around the top. get it the right way up and just drop it on. And there we go. What I'm actually going to do for the tops is I'm going to dry brush it a bit of medium sea grey. It's quite a light bluey grey colour, and in this case it's ammo acrylic. I'm literally going to rubbishy old brush this one just on the top, bit of paint on there. Clean off the brush and dry brush, including the sides where we've dirtied it up, and repeat for the rest. The last thing I'm going to do is a bit of Humbrol acrylic number 70. It's a bit redder inside. I'm just going to paint the grills on the top. A little bit thick, this paint, but what I can do is we have overdone that slightly on the side. Just get the grey, put it on, find a cotton bud, wherever I put them, let that drop, and just lift it back off to the undercolour. So the last thing I'm going to use on here is my weathering powders rust. I'm just going to get a little bit on the brush. Just a tiny amount. And just brush it on like that. And that gives a really nice finish, I think. And I think we'll call that it for today. We'll leave this all overnight and come back in the morning and see what else we can get on with. Morning guys, and next day obviously, change of clothes, etc. You know, what we're going to do today and to round out this video is I want to get some ground cover down, but to do that in this area around here where we've already got the hill and the trees and everything else, continuing on in this corner, the signal box I need to put lights in and I need to glaze it before I can actually fit it down, and once I fit it down then I can do some of the ground cover. So my ground cover, as you know, is sand, and it hasn't dried overnight obviously. It's winter here, it's not hot summer anymore, so this is still wet, so that means we got to go and do some cooking. Now that the sand is drying nicely, we're going to put the glazing and light into the signal box. Do not use one of these to drill a hole in the bottom, because whilst doing so it just broke. Insert relevant expletive here. So now we've had this disaster. Got to find a silver lining here. Now the reason I was opening it up was so that I can put the glazing in the bottom windows, and guess what? Dead easy now with only half a building. Also, the way it has broken, it's really clean. All the tiny little bits of detail haven't actually broken off. So as long as I don't damage any more of the little bits, once I've put these windows in the bottom with a bit of glue and glaze, or canopy glue, whatever it is I've got in there, when I glue it back together, if I use my ultra thin super glue, it's pretty much going to be an invisible repair. The only little bit that's gone is a tiny little shaving at the top on the back, which is going to be up under the eaves, and isn't really going to be a major disaster. So my signalman, who was outside waving, he's got a bit of a surprise and he jumped off. He's clear, he's lying on the floor over there. So I've actually drilled the small hole through in the corner at the bottom and up through the corner in the floor up there. You just see through it there. That is where the LED wires are going to go. So luckily no disaster as long as I don't do any more damage. So I'll just glue the windows in and then glue the two halves back together. So there's the windows. Here's a bit of plastic sheet off some packaging. That'll do perfectly. I have here some canopy glue from Zap, and I'm just going to apply some of that in here. We'll spread that around with a cotton bud, cocktail stick, because I don't need quite that much here. Spread it around inside. All the way down the other end. And slip in the plastic. And I'll use cotton bud just to press that down into the glue. Job done. Now I can see I've got some glazing in there. Makes a big difference. Now let's glue these two halves together again. So we'll use the thin super glue just to bead a little bit around. We'll just put it on there like that. Find my eyes again. We'll just run no, that'll be fine, because what I'll do is just apply a coat of varnish over everything. And it'll all blend back in. That's drawn through there quite nicely. Oh, now I'm sticking to it. Perfect. Job done, hopefully. So signal white is back in his position, and we've also got the first signal actually mounted into the baseboard with the power supply secured underneath. So now we're ready for some ground cover, at least in this corner. So now the glue is dry, I can just give it a little brush over with some matte varnish just to hide the reflections, hopefully, so that'll just blend in and disappear. We'll never know. Of course it ran all over the place down the back, so we're just liberally coated over. And we'll give that 10 minutes to dry, and then we'll look at putting the windows in. So I've cut and folded 2 bits of plastic. These were the front window of a box, in this case a dipole signal. So all I'm going to do now is, with the canopy glue rather than the super glue, which I almost picked up, I'm just going to put a couple of blobs in there. Quite large blobs. Spread that around a bit, a little bit in the corner. It dries really clear, so it doesn't matter where we get it in this case. We'll just spread that around, and then we just slot the window in. Press it home. Lovely. And we do the same for this window. Listen, we just wait for that to dry. So what am I going to use to light the signal box? Well, I have this tiny little micro LED. You just about see it there. And just before we put it in, I'm just going to check it works. Now it has a resistor already soldered on, so don't be doing this without the resistor because it won't work. It'll just pop. And assuming I get this the right way around, yeah, you can just bring it out the front there. There we go, that's a tiny little LED. And we'll run the 2 wires down through the holes that I do want in the bottom of the signal box there, and drag them out the bottom. It might even be easier just to feed that end up through oh, look at that, straight in. There we are. So what I'm going to do is going to put a strip across here inside of plastic card, styrene strip, and I'm going to mark that with a pencil, which is here somewhere, as being that long. Now we'll see how good my eyes are. Will it be a nice snug fit? Oh, look at that. Sweet. So we're just going to drill a hole through the baseboard for the wires to go through. I think that's big enough for the resistor. Just double check on that one. Oh yeah. He'll go through there nicely. And to glue that in place, I'm just going to use a spot of the old Gorilla super glue. apply it with a cocktail stick. A little splodge up there. A little splodge on the front. I'll do that. And I'll put a little sticky blob of that up in the top corner. And try and get the wires to lay up there. Come on. There we go. Splodge there. Splodge there somewhere. And now we're good for ground cover. So now we can sprinkle some sand. It's still a little bit warm, so let's get this down. So ground cover is quite easy. I've got this sand, it's nice and dry, it's been through a sieve, so there's no large chunks in it, there's a few little bits. It has the advantage it is ground colour, and we just, with a spoon, of which I've cut the end off so it gives me a bit of control, we can now just spread it in up the edge here to build up the ground level. And this is why I added cork on most of it, just to give it a bit of less of a hole to fill up. So there's that bit. I also have some fine ballast, grey blend. So we're going to use some of that as well. We're going to sprinkle that in the track. It's somewhere in my brushes. We'll use this one for now. I'm just going to dab this in, spread it out. We'll do the same for the track. That's that bit, and then we go back to the sand. Just put it around everything here, around the back of the signal box. And I reckon that would be sufficient for this little area. We'll just put a little bit along the edge here. This is where it's really important to take your time to get it where you really need it. Somewhere I have a bigger brush. Just gently, very gently, stipple that in. And I reckon just put a tiny bit more along here. And that's it, that's all the beds filled up. I have my alcohol mix, a bit of water, and my scenic cement. Scenic cement and a pipette and my spray. We'll just damp this all down. Flatten any little bits that balled up, got blown around. Smells good in here now. and liberally give it a soaking. And there we go, all glued. So now we just wait a while for that to go off. So we'll call that a day. We'll leave that all there to dry. It's going to take a few hours, so I'm not going to be able to do much more with it today. And we can then work out what we're going to do for the next part. I hope you agree that that's starting to look quite good now that it's coming together. And yeah, happy with that. So yeah guys, that's where we're up to today. It's going to take me a little while to tidy this mess up and edit this video, but I've had some good progress these last couple of days. Platform finally glued in, the drains, signal box finished, and got a bit of ballast down, so it's blending together nicely. Pretty much you know the score now. Anything you want to say, comment section below, and I'll speak to you next time. Catch you later. Bye for now.